Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode. Welcome to formally episode number 4. I hope that you are enjoying this specific series and you already have watched the previous 3 episodes. So, till so far, I hope that you are very much clear about how LLMs work internally. What do we mean by tokens? What exactly do we mean by attention mechanism? How exactly transformers work? How exactly the pre training or the post training process of LLM looks like? I hope that every concept is now pretty much clear to everyone. In this specific discussion, we will be talking something interesting from engineering point of view. And let me tell you, many beginners believe that this is something which is not even required, and that's the comment which I am also observing, that people are waiting for RAG. But before jumping towards building any application, whether it's about RAG application or agentic AI specific application, it's very important to go through with this specific episode. Now you can imagine that you have hired one employee. That employee is very intelligent. That employee will be able to give the answers forefront, contains a lot of knowledge. Consider that in terms of knowledge, it is very superior. But in that scenario, also, will you allow that specific employee directly connecting with your customers? No, right? You will obviously define the role, the responsibilities to the employee, what specific tone he or she have to use when they are handling the customers, what specific things they need to talk about, and what specific things are confidential. I mean, some sort of training will be required, right? Even though they have a very brilliant brain, right? Now you can imagine the same thing is happening with LLM. LLM is having a lot of superpowers. It has a brilliant brain because it is being trained on a very huge corpus of data. But still, if you won't, train them, if you won't define that how exactly they have to behave, if you won't control their behaviors, everything will be in vain. And today's session is all about that. In today's session, I will demonstrate that when I'm asking the two questions, not exactly two, one question two times. For example, if I'm asking, tell me about data science, you will see that I'm getting two different responses when I am asking the same question two times. Now imagine you are building a chatbot or you are building a legal assistant. Do you want the same sort of response at your end? Do you want that at every point of time when you ask the same question, that will behave differently or the answer will be different? No, right? You want that the answer should be same. And that is the main reason why this session is very important to understand. So how can we design that? One of the most important reason why this is happening is because all the LLM based models are probabilistic based models. I hope everybody know all these things because I'm assuming that you already have covered up the previous episode. So because of that specific reason, when we talk about probability nature, right, the answers will vary at every point of time. So when you're asking the same question two times, three times, you'll get, there is a very high probability different answer only, although the context is same. And that is the reason why I'm getting the different answers as well. So today, let's discuss that how can we control the behavior of LLMs, what kind of practices we have to use, and make sure that when you are learning on the way, you will document your learning because these sessions are very long. And please make sure that once you will be able to finish the entire episode, do let me know in the comment section that whether you have understood the context or not. With that, let's get started. But here, what we have done, we have just opened a chat GPT and we have asked the same question with respect to tell me about data science two times. And I have just copied these two responses. And what we are observing that although both of these responses are correct, I'm not saying that first one is correct or second one is correct. They both are equally correct. They both are giving me a knowledge about data science, which is my question. But the problem is that it brings different responses. And if I will ask the same question third time regarding tell me about data science, I will get something different in some different way. Although again I'm saying answers are correct, but the responses are different.
Is this something which everybody can see? I have opened it in a incognito, so that's why it's not logged in, but the context is clear, right? So, in our today's discussion, that is our focus. Focus is that when we talk about large language models, they are incredibly powerful. We're not certainly denying the fact that they're not powerful. But the problem is that they are not giving us a deterministic response. And in the world of computer programming, computer science, algorithms, we always learn the fact that what we want to build at the end of the day is a deterministic response. So, over here, when we talk about LLM, today we just want to understand that how can we control the LLM behavior, because the issue is that the response of the Gen AI tools are not deterministic, meaning every time when we ask some question, same question I should say, it gives some different response. Their behavior can change. And that is the real challenge while building the LLM applications in the production side. So when people start building their applications in their companies, that is the number one problem which they started facing. What we want by the end of the day? We want from LLM a reliable behavior, a deterministic behavior. But we know from our previous discussion that when we talk about large language models, when we talk about in general any language model, these model works on probabilities. So by design, these language models generates probability, right? Over here, we can say over here, model does not think, but it eventually predicts the next most likely token. And that's what we have learned in our previous discussion. मॉडल को थोड़ी ना पता है कि आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट डेटा साइंस या उसको इंटरनली डेटा साइंस के बारे में कुछ नहीं पता. What it internally it is doing is it is just trying to get the next possible token at every point of time. I hope you're getting my point. Yes. Now, it could be the case that every time, whenever I'm asking this question of tell me about data science, uh, there could be a small probability differences in terms of the output. And that could be the reason that it could lead to completely different responses in each and every iteration. So, why we're getting different responses? That is the reason. There could be small probability differences, and that can lead to completely different responses in every iteration. And that's the whole point. Now, when researchers start controlling this behavior of LLM by designing something called as prompt engineering, that is where the core concept of prompt engineering comes into picture. They said that if The model is probabilistic. How can we guide this model towards a desired behavior? So the answer is through prompts. If the model is probabilistic, the question was how can we guide it toward desired behavior? And the only solution which they figured out is that we can give some aggressive uh, prompt at every point of time. And with the help of that, we can do the same. So people feel prompt engineering is a magic. We are doing something great over there. Because of that, we're getting very good responses by the Gen AI systems. But I mean, it is not magical thing. Even in the starting scenarios, I'm talking about 2, 3 years back, you might have observed that this was so trending, this prompt engineering, that people start launching their own courses only about this prompt engineering. I mean, it's not that much difficult, but uh, it was a very big hype. This is something which is a future, and it requires a separate course altogether, which includes months of training. But that is not the case. I mean, I will talk about it today, and you will observe it, and you can only let me know that is this something which is kind of a great deal over here. I genuinely don't feel so. It's just that maybe that was the time where uh, the people can create a FOMO, and that's what I think they have done. So it's not magic. It is just a behavior design. It's like you are teaching a kid that when somebody will come, how to behave. Uh, let's say in front of your parents versus in front of your friends versus in front of your in-laws, and so on, whatever be the cases are, right? So just like the way we train the kid that your behavior should be different in every scenario, similarly we are training over here this large language models that depending upon different prompts, your response should be different. For example, today only I have launched one video regarding how can we write an interesting prompt to review our own resume. And in that specific video, I'm showcasing my resume and how effectively it was giving me a response. Now, the complete idea was the prompt designing. And if you will write a proactive response in a that much detailed way, you will also get the responses. Right now, uh, I personally feel that the people who are writing good prompts, they are charging really well in the forms, and they are the ones who are leading the things as well. A few years back, the coders are the ones who get more respect. Right now, because of this Gen AI specific tools, uh, the thing is ki how can we make use of these Gen AI tools to write an effective and optimized tool. So, who can write an effective prompt for me to make that chat GPT based models work is the one where I will pay the higher. So, you will observe that even in the companies, the people who are able to write an effective prompt, they are charging a very huge amount of money. So, coding is something which is no more a bigger thing for anyone because now we have these tools which can write a code. But who can write a good, effective prompt so that the model will be able to generate the optimized code part is the big deal. I hope you're getting a difference now, right? In fact, I have heard that uh, the Google firm and many firms like that uh, have started doing one interview round in which they are just sharing the Gen AI specific tools and asking the people to use these tools to give the response. They're just sharing the use case and They're just saying that how effectively you're writing a system prompt to get this task done. So it means that you can use these tools to get the results. That is not no more hidden. In fact, I mean, we are working in a firm, and at least to us, even our leaders or managers say that use as much as you can these tools. Don't write anything from scratch. So this is a practice, and now people are starting involving these practices in the interviews as well, which is a very good thing because that is something to the future as well. So over here, today we will try to understand that how we can write an effective prompt. What are the different techniques we do have when we write these prompts? But before jumping towards that topic, I just want to talk about that what were the issues, what were the challenges which people have faced when they start controlling the LLM behavior. So let's talk about what are the challenges people faced in controlling LLMs. First challenge was hallucination. I hope everybody knows the meaning of this word. Hallucination means that uh, your model is giving the response in a very confident way, but that response is completely wrong. It's like overconfidence. It's like I'm interviewing one candidate and I'm asking from him that can you just talk about random forest model? And in a very confident way, he's talking about the maths of random forest as logistic regression, which is completely wrong, right? Random forest maths is completely different. It is an ensemble technique. But he was not talking about anything related to ensemble technique. He was just talking about the maths of sigmoid, classification tasks, how logistic regression works, and all those things with the name of random forest. Now he was so confident that, in fact, sometimes as a interviewer, I might get confused whether my things are correct, my knowledge is correct, or what he or she is saying is correct. This happens, right? This happens a lot in the interviews. People are so overconfident that they tell the wrong information also in a very confident way. Same thing, model starts adapting. So LLMs generate the plausible text data, but they don't verify the facts. And that was the number one issue which happened when the researchers started controlling these LLMs. The second issue was, as we have discussed, is the inconsistent responses. For every given question, we started getting some different answers, which is an issue. Third one was the formatting issue. Third one was the formatting issues. For example, let's say I'm asking one question that whatever be the contextual prompt I have given, after the time saying that can you give me the final output in JSON? So ideally, maybe I will have to use this output in my pipeline, in my entire project series. So it should look something like this, right? It should look something like this. It should be in a 4 blocks proper JSON. And inside this, it should say that, hey, this is the name, and name is, let's say, Priya. So that I can just directly copy the results and I can use it effectively in my final output. But what happened is sometimes the responses are like this in a textual form. Here is the JSON out, and then it is giving me response like in a textual format. Name Priya. I mean, uh, when I'm asking the response in a JSON output, I really want the output to be in this format, in this coding format. I don't want the output to be in a string format. So this is something which is not the real expectation, right? Because if I will just involve this as in my data science pipeline, my entire application breaks because of that. because of this wrong way of formatting. That is an issue. Fourth issue, which people started analyzing it, is the safety problems. Initially, when these models were designed, and let's suppose the person is giving the prompt like this: explain cyber attacks, something like this. Now you can imagine, I mean, model may generate some unsafe content because we are not providing any restrictions. We're not controlling these outputs by any chance, by any way. So it could give some responses which might not be ethical, which might not be uh, right to share, legal to share, and that is where the problems will start. So the control problem was a very big problem at that point of time. Ultimately, the solution was, the end goal was, because after observing all these problems, the end goal was single, which is that how can we make these probabilistically driven model, or probabilistic, we can say, model behave more reliably and predictably. And that is where, as I have mentioned, this prompt engineering part will come into picture. That was the, I mean, first practice which people had given a thought, that why not to define in a question part itself. Prompt is nothing but what is the question the user is asking. In a proper way, in an appropriate way, what exactly you need, what exactly you want. And then let's see how we can try to control their behavior accordingly. Raman, we have tuned that output. We have said that this is the kind of a format of output we need, but we don't mention that what exact words you should say and what exact words you should avoid, right? In the dictionary. As it is being trained on a completely available data, which is available on the web, there are a lot of unethical words which are there. So training happened on that as well, right? So we need some way to control it. Similarly, I mean, in the supervised fine tuning also, we cannot have all the web data to be tuned, to get tuned, right? We can tune it 1 lakh or 2 lakh records, because that is something which is done by human beings only, and they are trying to create this kind of a data. And then RLHF is also being done by human beings only. So because of that restriction, because of that limitation, data is quite huge on the public part. We cannot have all the wonderful examples for our model. So although we have done it in the post training, but when we are getting the responses, these responses are having these issues which I have mentioned: hallucination, inconsistency in the given response, formatting part is there, safety problems are there. So somehow afterwards, after that, when my LLM model is ready, I need a way to control the output. I need a way so that my output will be consistent. I need a way where I can guide the model that you can use these words, but you cannot use that specific words. For example, religion is something which is a very sensitive content in our India, right? If you will say something bad or something good, or if you'll compare any religion over another religion, if you will be biased, it can bring a lot of issues to the firm itself, right? So that is something which we can clearly convey to our prompts, right? Uh, we can avoid those biasness, because on the web there will be biasness which might be available. But what we want by the end of the day is that it will be giving me an unbiased response. So that is where this prompt engineering will come into picture. I hope it is fine. So it is basically controlling the behavior of the response by the LLM side. Now, how can we write an effective prompt? That's our next question. So, shall we move further? All good till so far? Perfect. Okay. Now, coming to the prompts. So, there are few strategies which we have, but before that, I will talk about the four pillars which you will observe is there in almost every prompt. The four pillars. First one, let me copy it directly. I hope everybody can read this clearly. So these are the four pillars which have been decided by the team members. That first of all, we will focus on the instruction part. We will try to be specific. Uh, what is the exact specific task you want the model to perform? For example, do you want to summarize the given textual data which you are passing as input, or do you want to do a classification task, or do you want to extract some insights from a given textual data? So this should always start with a strong imperative verb. Then second important thing, which is the second pillar, is the context. The background information or the word rules which you will provide that will help the model to follow that specific instructions. This is where you define the constraints. For example, you can mention that use a professional tone, only use the provided text. This will help the model to not use any slang words. Third important thing is the input data. So over here, the actual variable information the model needs to process. For example, do you want the model to process the customer email or a piece of code or a transcript, whatever be the cases. The fourth important thing is the output indicator, where you will mention that how exactly you want to get the result. So you can have a final nudge that tells the model exactly how to start its response. For example, JSON, sentiment. This prevents the verbosity text we discussed earlier. ये चीज verbosity का मतलब क्या होता है? I think we might have discussed this in a machine learning topics as well. Anyone who knows about it, and in deep learning might also we have discussed it. What is the meaning of verbosity? What is the meaning of verbosity?
How expressive the output is.
Exactly. So you can see verbosity refers to the level of detail a program, model, algorithm output during execution. It dictates how much logging, diagnostic, progress information is printed to the console. Context refers to the surrounding data, environment, or the prompt state. For example, over here you can see model training and diagnostic. For example, let's say you are using scikit-learn, PyTorch, or XGBoost. It controls the console output during the model fitting or the cross-validation stage. So how to use it? We often control via verbose integer parameter. I think we have used it multiple times in deep learning and machine learning context. High verbosity provides a diagnostic context to identify the bottleneck, track the convergence or support overfitting on a massive training data. In LLMs, you can see, and the prompt side, what does it mean? The wordiness or the length of a AI generated response. How to control it? You can manage through system prompts, temperature settings, and maximum tokens constraints. I will talk about these three things in a later part of our today's discussion only. So it provides more context in your prompt, generally leads to higher quality output, but might trigger verbosity compensation, where an AI compensates for lack of knowledge by generating unnecessary or meandering filter. So let's go back. I hope these four pillars are clear to everyone. So always remember, Whenever you are trying to provide a prompt from today onwards, you will think about the instruction, about the context, about the input data, and the output indicator, what exactly you want as an output. Now, I will showcase you a quick demo of it if till so far everything is clear with respect to the very first prompt part. And then this is the basic generalized one. This is something which is a generalized uh, prompt engineering. It is the initial phase where this is the four pillars which have been designed by the teams. And after that, later on, right now, we will be having different types of prompt engineering practices as well, which we have to cover up in today's discussion. But before that, let me try to give you one quick use case about it, if you are okay with that. Shall we proceed with the implementation? Okay. So now what we can do is, let's open a collab. And today, by the end of the session, because there was one question asked by one of the learners, how can we do a setup if we want to do in a ID, VS Code, or any other platform in our local? I'll just try to demonstrate that as well. Controlling LLM behavior. Let me connect this. And I think we have the secret key already available. So we will use that same secret key. There is no need to create a new Gemini API key again. We can directly use this specific API key. Now, what we can do is, we have discussed that initially we have to import two things, client and the user data. And after that, we can just initialize our client. We'll try to just load that API key. And after that, we will define the components of our prompt engineering, which is the four pillars that we have discussed. So let's try to do a quick demonstration of the four pillars that we have discussed. So we will say from google.genai, we can import something called as a client. And then from google.collab, we will import something called as a user data so that we can get a API key. So let's try to do one thing. Let's try to initialize the client. So we can say API key is something which is equal to user data dot get. And inside this, I can just mention my API key name, which you have defined over here. You can define any name, but whatever name you have defined, just make sure that is the same name you will have to use. After this, you will define the client. So over here, you just initialize the client. You will say that you can use the API key, which is equal to whatever be the API key we have. Okay. Now, again, we will use the pre-trained model. So we will define our model ID, which is equal to, we will use the same model. So it's there inside the models, Gemini 3 flash preview. You can just check the spellings. Otherwise, it will give us an issue. After this, now we will define the four pillars that we have discussed. Firstly, we will define the instruction in our code. For example, let's say the instruction is you have to do a classification task. So classify the following customer support ticket into one of these categories, let's say. It could be either a billing category or it could be a technical category or it could be a general category. ठीक है? तो मैंने बोला कि this is something which is an instruction for you. You have to do a classification task. So over here you can see what we have said, that you have to be very specific with respect to what exact task you want the model to perform. So now I am specific कि I want the classification task to be done. So I have just shared that over here. Now I will set the second thing, which is the context. Over here, what is there in the context? You can see background information. So I will share the background. I'll say that you are a, let's say, senior support coordinator. Be extremely concise. Now this prompt will help my model to ignore the useless tokens if it is throwing to me and be focused on the specific output. Do not provide an explanation. Now, if let's say in future I am giving you some input data and you will have to classify that whether it belongs to billing, technical or general category, I don't want an explanation from you. Just be very specific. Just directly give me the response, whether it belongs to a billing category or technical category or a general category. That's it. Now the third thing in the four pillars is the input data. So we will define our input data. Input data says that I was charged twice for my subscription this month and I need a refund as soon as possible. Now, this is something which is input data and I want my model to classify this under either billing category or technical category or general category. So output indicator will be what exact output you are looking for from a given model. So I am looking for category, column, and then whatever be the category belongs to. Acha, what do you think is the answer of the specific prompt with respect to this input data? What do you think is the ideal result for it? Any guesses? Anyone?
Billing.
Billing. I think everybody agrees on this part because we're talking about charging twice for the subscription part, so it should be relevant with the billing part. Now, let's try to do one thing. Let's try to construct the full prompt now with delimiters. Very interesting. This will help the model to distinguish between the sections. To help the model to distinguish the sections. Okay? So we will say that first of all, the full prompt, because see, we have four pillars: instruction, context, input data, and output indicator. Now we have to ultimately provide a full end-to-end prompt, so which is composed of these four things, these four pillars. So this is the final thing which I am defining, that hey, this is my complete prompt which I have. Okay, and over here I'll define it. So this delimiter help my model to understand that hey, this is the instruction. So when you're looking for instruction, refer the instruction part above. Then again a delimiter, context. When you're looking for a context, refer the above context that I have provided. Then when you are looking for input data, so take the ticket which is actually mentioned under this input data. And after this, we will talk about the output structure. So over here, we will say that hey, just focus on what I have defined under output indicator. Done. Once this part will be done, now we are ready to get the inference from the model. We want to get the inference from the model. How can we get that? Get the inference from the model. How can we get that? Same code that we have used earlier. So we will use that response, which will be equal to, we will use the client function dot models. Inside that we have already available function called as generate content, which will help me to generate the content further. And inside this, I will define what is the model I'm using. I think the variable which I have used is model ID now. So we can just provide this model ID as the thing. And then second thing we have is the contents. And over here, inside the contents, we will provide the full prompt as the variable. Now finally, once I'll get the response, I want this response to get printed. So I will say print final output, and inside this I can just mention what is there as a text, response dot text. Now let's see whether this will work in an appropriate way or not. I think synthetically I don't feel there is any issue. Let's see anyhow. In the meantime, I'll share with you the collab notebook. Just give me a second. Can you see? Final output indicator was category, column, and after that I'm getting the answer as billing. Is this making sense to everyone? Is this making sense to everyone? Yes, all good. So I'm just sharing the code with everyone in the chat window, just like me. All good. There is one question by Divakar. Is it also called as magic prompt structure? Yes, you can call it as a magic prompt structure as well, because over here we are dividing the prompt into distinct sections, which help the model to better understand our intention and to produce the reliable results. That's true. We can call it like this, but in an official term, in documentations, you won't find this as a magic prompt structure. Uh, this is something which is the key term designed by the content creators, developers in the industries. But from an industry perspective, if you will say, so we often call it as a prompt template, instruction template, or a prompt framework. This key term is not designed formally. This is something which the creators design because of the different sections that we have in a given prompt. But you can call it. Is it good? Is it okay? Shall we proceed further now to the next part of our discussion? So, till so far, what exactly we have covered up? We have covered up that, okay, why the prompt engineering is important and how it will eventually help me to get a concise result. Now, if you will just try to change this input data, uh, let's say, can you just give me some other example of a technical stuff in this input data? Let's see what exactly the category it will share with us. Can we raise any new ticket with respect to technical stuff? There could be multiple possibilities. I mean, anything which is coming in your head. Let's say you can say the mobile application uh, crashes immediately after I open it. I have reinstalled the app, but uh, but the issue, we can say, still persists. Now, which specific section in the instructions part this class belongs to? It will be it will be technical, I believe, and this is, I think, a very common scenario which happens with us. In fact, I mean, a lot of good apps, unicorn-based firms, when they launch an initial part, this is the common possibility which usually happens. Banking apps, one of the common issues which we encounter. So let's try to see now what is the result we are getting. Yep, Arun has already mentioned you have to activate the key. Also make sure that you have a Gemini API key available in the secret key part in your collab. Then only it will work. Otherwise, you will get these kind of issues. And this is something we have done in our last session. Okay, what's next? Now, after this, I will be talking about the types of prompt engineering. What kind of different practices we usually use whenever we design the prompt right now in the industries? And which one of them is the, what we can say, common ones? So you can see we're getting the result as technical over here, right? Perfect. Shall we start our discussion? Those who are getting the issues only with respect to Gemini API key, please try to get this fixed by your end. There could be an issue in terms of your API key. Either you must have not copied, pasted in an appropriate way, or your name of this variable I'm talking about, it could be different. So don't exactly copy paste my code. Just check there will be a proper tick mark while accessing it. These are the common issues because of which these things might not work. Otherwise, in front of you, I am writing a code and everything is working perfectly fine in a seamless way, right? But still, if you feel there is some issue, it's okay. Maybe by the end of the session, you can go ahead, share your screen, and we'll try to fix it. For now, just focus on the session completely. Okay? Then you anyhow will get the recordings, so you can implement the stuff at your end. I will share the files also with you all by the end of this discussion to uh, get this implementation done at your end. Okay? Shall we move further? All good? Now, the very initial type of prompt engineering was zero shot prompt engineering. It went very famous in the initial days. zero shot prompt engineering, or prompting, in other words, you can say. You might have heard about this. This was the initial practice which people start following, and this is still useful in a limited scenarios, I would say. What exactly this zero shot prompting does, eventually, if let's say you're writing the instructions uh, in a given prompt, but you are not mentioning any examples of how the output looks like, in that case, this is simply called as zero shot prompting. It's a very basic form of interaction via LLM. You are just telling the LLM to perform a task in a specific way. So it refers to asking the model to perform a task without providing any examples of the expected output. Okay, this is the common thing that we have. Why specifically I am saying that without providing any examples of the expected output, I will just talk about it when we will talk about another type of prompt engineering practice, which is a few shot prompting, because there you will find that I am giving multiple examples of it. Now, when to use this quite commonly right now? We will be using it whenever you are trying to find out a common knowledge based task. So at that point of time, we will use zero shot prompting. For example, you want to get an explanation of some general concept. For example, in the starting of the session today, we searched about tell me about data science. So it's a simple knowledge task. You can use this specific practice. Or you want to do some simple transformations. For example, you want to translate a common phrase or you want to change the tone of any generic email. In that case, you can use it. Or there could be some high reasoning specific models you want to apply. In that case, you can definitely go with a zero shot prompting. I hope everybody knows that in the models like ChatGPT, Perplexity, we do have a different versions of uh, using the standard matrices. For example, deep research, reasoning part. Depending upon what exact task you are doing, you can change and switch that button. Have you guys know all these things? Have you guys observed these facts? I don't know whether I can showcase you in incognito tab or not, but in our login part, it is having multiple options. Have you guys seen that, or shall I showcase you? Just give me a second. Maybe I'll just hide that and then I'll showcase you. Yep. For example, over here, this is after logged in. You can see over here you have buttons like thinking, deep research, web search. So I'm talking about this thinking button. So if the whole context is about reasoning or thinking, you can use this zero shot prompting. Even in the deep research also, I think it makes sense to use zero shot prompting. Similarly, you will get these kind of tabs in Perplexity also. So if I will just try to showcase you, I'm using the pro version of Perplexity. So over here, you can see we do have all these models available. And there was yep, this is something which I was talking about. So personally, if you will ask from me, it's been almost 2, 3 years I'm using Claude, ChatGPT, and Perplexity. And I'm using these tools at every point of time in some different aspects, in some different work style. For example, if let's say I'm working on any projects and I want the code writing part to be done, with my analysis, whatever work I have done, so these three tabs are always open in front of me. So this is a Claude. So I use Claude over there. Then when I'm doing a deep research, because my task involves research part. We are in AI specific domain. So on a daily basis, we have to work a lot in terms of searching, in terms of exploring something new things. So usually I fill this tab with deep research. And as soon as you will fill the tab with deep research, it will take 5-10 minutes before it will share with you some response. This is something which you will observe as a difference. And whenever I do content creation part, for example, any YouTube video, let's say I have to create, and obviously somehow I have to just have some script handy with me. So in terms of script creation, in terms of LinkedIn post creation, in terms of conversational perspective, if I'm talking, so this chat GPT plays a very important role in terms of my work. And Gemini also I use sometimes whenever I want to play with the pictures, image-based things. So eventually, I mean, all of these tools are super helpful depending upon what exact work I'm doing. Sometimes I uh, take a premium version of Claude whenever the project is quite huge and I'm having a plan to create my personal projects as well side by side. That is where I prefer to take the premium version of Claude. Uh, Gemini, I usually get a premium version from my company's end, and Perplexity, I always have from past 2-3 years because of the research part. Because that is something which is, as a mentor, also I'm teaching as well on a daily basis to my learners. So this is something which is I will say critical area for my work professionally. So this is something which I always make sure it will be active with me, uh, because it will eventually help me whenever I'm free. I have that these apps in my smartphone as well. I'll just open them. I'll just keep on scrolling, thinking about different things and preparing my sessions accordingly. So yep, uh, over here when I will be using these high reasoning models, I can again go ahead and use the zero shot prompting practice. These are the common use cases where you can use it, right? Now, underneath, will it use different models based on the option we select or same model? It uses different models, and that's why you will observe the pattern. Their responses are kind of different. Obviously, that's why we have multiple tools, and you will observe that every tool has its own specialty. I'm sharing that specialty as per my use cases, but you will observe that other people have other experiences depending upon what exactly job they are doing. I personally feel, for example, Claude is very bad in terms of uh, creating some LinkedIn post for me, and ChatGPT is very good. It could be a possibility about the models also, and a very large contribution with respect to a system design, system prompting, not system design, sorry, system prompt, which the people have shared to these models, right? Every model will have a different prompt. So based on that, only the responses are a bit different. So you can find these prompts, for example, Claude uh, prompt, I think it is open source. So you can have a look onto it. You will find it as a very bigger prompt. So every prompt has its own strength, and based on that, because of this, I personally feel the responses are way different in terms of the strengths as well. No, I don't think subscription. To if you are taking a premium subscription, so you will definitely get an access of the premium models that we have. So in that context, it is there. But uh, apart from this, the main thing is the tokens. So when you work for free, after some point of time, you cannot extend your chart. It will showcase you that now you have to wait for the next day, and then you can start working on it. So in terms of the responses in the free version, I'm not saying that the responses are bad or we're not getting a very good responses. Even the free models that are working internally, they're also quite good. The problem is that in the free versions, if let's say your task is quite lengthy, let's say you're creating your projects and you are using a Claude, even after, I mean, initial one or two queries when you write, and it will give you a response. After that, it will say to you that you are out of token. Now you have to wait for the next day to restart your work, and obviously, I don't want that. That is the one of the common issue why people usually purchase these premiums, right? Yep, I personally feel, Manas, all these platforms have different niche, and as I have mentioned, the reason could be this system prompt only that we're learning today, right? Uh, Maybe after the session will get over, you can just go ahead and analyze their system prompts. I don't feel that every platform will have a system prompt available and accessible for us. But as far as I remember, when I was doing the research, almost few months or years back, at least Claude system prompt I have seen personally, and I have observed very carefully back, I think few months back, I launched one workshop on GenAI, and that was the time where I was doing this research. So you can just have a look onto it. After that, I have not seen it again. Please have a look onto it, and you will get to know that okay, this is where the exact difference lies. Apart from whatever models they are using, definitely, right? So now let's try to see the implementation of zero shot prompting. And when I'm saying that it performs a task without providing any examples, what does that exact mean for us? So what I will do over here, I will just try to showcase you a quick demo now with respect to a zero shot prompting. So what I will do is I will just try to copy this code because initial things will always remain the same. There is no as such difference. One more thing, we are using a Gemini API keys over here. Every model which you are using have a different syntax. For example, if you will work with OpenAI, I personally have worked with OpenAI quite a lot as comparable to Gemini. In fact, it is the very first time I'm using Gemini API keys. Uh, in my career and the professional work, I have always worked with OpenAI API keys. Um because the team have already decided this kind of a way how the curriculum looks like. That's the only reason uh, I have also inclined with that and used this Gemini API key. Otherwise, I might also showcase the entire stuff with the OpenAI API key. So I'm more personally aware about the syntax of those things as comparable to this one. But as and when I am exploring, I'm creating the content for your batch. What I'm seeing is that things are not difficult to understand. If let's say you are already aware about one of the let's say Gemini or OpenAI or Claude keys and how we are getting a response, how we're generating the content, you can easily switch among each other, and that is something which is uh, very important. We should be flexible because we don't know that in future which specific company we are working in, and there could be a case that either your company is working with Gemini or the company is working with OpenAI, and you cannot say no that okay, I'm not aware about it or I'm not comfortable with writing the code of that. On top of it, we have documentations available. So at any point of time, wherever you face a difficulty, that what exact syntax of generating a content looks like, how can I get the response of any given API keys, always check those documentations to get a better idea of it. Everything is already written. It's just that we have to use it. So I find GenAI field to be very easy as comparable to what we have learned in machine learning, in deep learning, in NLP specific part. Because over here, although in terms of getting the results, we feel very excited because it's very easy to get a result. Why? Because we're not writing the code from scratch. We're just using these API keys. We're just using these pre-trained models, and our job is done. So what we are learning at the end of the day is just how can we use these pre-trained models to get the results done, right? So you will find it easier. It's just that wherever you observe that something new is coming up and I'm not sure about how can I use it, always refer documentation in the syntax of it to get a better idea of it. So never ever at least worry about these things, because in future maybe once the specific discussions will get over, something new will pop up and maybe these are not the practices which people were using. So at that point of time, documentations are the right way to go and refer and see the latest updates and work on it accordingly, right? So now what we will do, we will implement something called as zero shot prompting. As we have seen that there will be no examples provided in this specific scenario, in this specific case, just we have to write a row system instructions. So over here, let me try to showcase you how our zero shot prompt looks like. So I have one prompt available with me. I'll just copy and paste it over here. Just have a read on to it. Just have a read on to it. So over here we are saying you have to analyze the customer message and you need to return the sentiment. It could be either positive, negative, or neutral. And you need to return the urgency also. This could be high, medium, or low. Over here, the message is I have been waiting for 3 days for a response to my ticket. This is ridiculous. And I need this fixed by the end of the day, or I am canceling my service. Now, what do you think will be the output of it? So, sentiment wise and urgency wise.
Negative, high.
Exactly. Uh, is everybody agrees on this point? It should be negative and urgencies will be high because that is something, that is how, I mean, this message is being there. So now again, we'll try to get the inference from the model. And over here, the only difference is that now in terms of content, we just have zero shot prompt, right? And in terms of output, we can say that uh, zero shot result, and let's try to see the result, how it
सो मैम
behaves. Yeah,
पहले जो हमने लिखा था वो इंस्ट्रक्शंस वगैरह जो थे वो पार्ट ऑफ सिस्टम प्रॉम्प्ट था बेसिकली है ना
yes, yes,
एंड देन नाउ वी आर राइटिंग यूजर प्रॉम्प्ट्स
yes.
और मैम वो 3 हैश से क्या मतलब
It's a delimiter to
ओके
distinguish between the instruction, context, input data, and output.
so should we follow always like this kind of
Yes,
formatting even for user prompt as
yes.
well
No,
okay
for the system prompt only. These are the
okay
delimiters that we will be having.
और मैम सिस्टम प्रॉम्प्ट में एक्ट एज समथिंग समथिंग वो नहीं लिखना होता रोल डिफाइन
We'll
करना
talk
जरूरी नहीं
about
होता
it. We will
ओके
discuss in another time. Yeah. So
ठीक
over here, you can see I'm getting a result, sentiment as negative, urgency as high. Okay. Now, what is the possible issue over here? Uh, issue is that if, let's say, I want the output something like this. I'm writing it over here, but uh, I'll just remove it afterwards. Something like this. Sentiment negative, and then in one line itself, I want urgency high. Or maybe I want to separate these two results via some dash line. something like this. Or maybe I want the output something like this, negative followed by high. I don't have a way in zero shot prompting to define it. I don't have a way to define that how exactly I'm looking for the output over here, right? Whatever way it has learned from its pre-training and from its post-training, the results, accordingly, it will throw us the results in the zero shot prompting. So wherever you feel that you don't care about the preferred styling, that's why I told you the use case of it. Wherever you are just trying to have a common knowledge specific task, you don't care that how the response looks like. You just want the correct result, correct response, and it's basically useful for your thinking process per se, or you are doing it just to enhance your knowledge. In that case, it is quite fine. But we have the scenarios where we want that specific result. Maybe we are working with some data science pipeline where the output will be fed as the input to the other model, and I want the output to be in some specific format. That is where this specific prompting strategy will get failed. And that is where we have another type of technique which we called as few shot prompting. So under this few shot prompting, the only major difference is that we will provide a set of examples. So this is right now considered as the most powerful tool in your prompt because it will ensure the results will be consistent and reliable as well, because you will provide in the system prompt itself multiple uh, examples, input output input output multiple times, that your model will understand that okay, the user is looking for this kind of responses, and I have to make sure that whenever I will also print the output, I will have to bring this kind of a results. So over here the philosophy is that you will always firstly define the format. You will showcase exactly how the data should be structured. Then you will set the tone. You can say that the response will be formal, it could be purely technical, and so on. And in that sense, it will help us to reduce the ambiguity as well. So, how ideally this looks like, uh, let's try to understand. So, maybe I can make it below and I can write it over here that let me just copy this. It refers to asking the model to perform a task with providing multiple examples of the expected output. Okay, that is the main thing, and that eventually helps this few shot prompting to be more consistent and reliable as comparable to the zero shot one. Okay, how can we distinguish in terms of our code implementation? So this is where I'm writing now, few shot prompting. Again, I have the few short prompts ready with me. I'm just showcasing you now. Few short prompting, and let me just paste it. We'll talk about it, Purnesh. Wait for a moment. Right time will come. We'll discuss that as well. Everything will come step by step. Okay, so we got the response. There is some issue in the response. I have forget to change this thing. Now we can just mention few short results and then we can just print it. Now you can see what is this few short prompting looks like. You will say we have mentioned that we want to classify the customer feedback by category and sentiment, and then we are providing the exact patterns over here. For example, input is The app keeps crashing whenever I try to upload a photo. The category is technical, sentiment is negative. Can you observe the format of it? Again, a dashed line I have represented between the output and the sentiment. Similarly, in the example number two, I love the new dark mode feature. It looks amazing. So I can see again a big dash line in between. In the example number three, why was I charged $20 extra this month? I want an explanation. So again, there will be a big dash in between the category and the sentiment. Now, the final result is the delivery person was very rude and left the package in the rain. So I just want to understand that what is the uh, category and the sentiment corresponding to it. I'm getting some error. Mm, So this is the problem when we work with the free uh, tier models. These kind of results we don't get when we do a billing of it. So let's wait. If we get it, let's wait. Hmm. Okay, in the meantime, it is running. What is the main thing you have observed? The main thing is you will observe that few short forces the model to mirror the exact syntax which you are providing in your system prompt. Now, this makes much easier for your Python code to understand the syntax and give the response like that. The model will be more reliable. It will understand the pattern of a given data, and okay, it will throw the results accordingly. Now you can see the result actually comes, and we can see the category is logistic and sentiment is negative. Is it correct? The delivery person was very rude. I mean, yeah, it's correct. It should be logistics a category only, and it is a negative sentiment only. So yeah, all good. Yes. Now, this is about zero shot and few shot prompting. But after that, people start thinking that can we do something better? Can we diversify our responses? Can we make the model to think in a more deeper way before giving us the final result? Because sometimes directly giving the result in one go may cause the wrong answers as well. So just like the way when we speak something in front of anyone, we think a lot, we spend our time, we analyze, and then in order to make sure that we are giving the appropriate answer, we are giving the appropriate response, we will always ensure that we will think twice, thrice, four times, at least to the people who are having a bigger position as comparable to us. Same thing we demonstrated with the help of a chain of thought technique in the LLMs. In the system prompt itself, we mentioned in the system instructions the persona of it. We mentioned that before you will try to give a response, think twice, thrice, and that actually makes the model performance quite good. It's just that now your final output will take some time to get the response. It will not be that much straightforward. But whatever be the output it will come, it will be validated. It will always be ensured and it will be more accurate. So that is something which we have learned under this chain of thought prompting. So I'll talk about it now, and then you will get a better understanding of it. So over here, I will just showcase you now via IDE how these things will be done and how it is eventually uh, different via the OpenAI API keys. So let me just open this. This is the code demonstration in VS Code I have with me. I think I have used this in my previous discussions also to explain you few interesting insights. Uh, okay. So first question, which was asked by Raman in the last class, ki if let's say I'm doing it in a IDE, so how can I make that happen? So as I have mentioned that you can have to create a .env file where your key will be stored. This is the best practice. And after that, in your main file, you can load that .env file and then you can start working on it. Now, over here also, we do have a client, just like the way we have in Gemini. It's just that because you're using over here OpenAI, so you have to use from OpenAI import OpenAI. Over there, if you remember, if you will implement via Gemini API key, you will have to use from google.genai import client, and accordingly, you will have to use the key corresponding to it. So client is there, initialization is there, but it depends on which specific API key you're using. Accordingly, the syntax will be different. Going back, I was talking about a chain of thought prompting. So this is a very good example of it, which you can see. So you can see over here, I'm saying that you are an AI assistant. Now, there was someone who was talking about previously that do we need to define the persona as well? Yes. Now, from here, you will observe that in every system instructions, we define the persona that eventually help the results to be more refined and more creative. So, this is the persona. You have mentioned that you are an AI assistant who is expert in breaking down complex problems into simpler tasks. For the given user query, I'm saying that you need to analyze the input and break it down into smaller and manageable steps, right? Over here, you will observe that I'm saying at least think 5 to 6 steps on how to solve the problem before getting the final result. The steps are you get a user input, you analyze the input, you think, you again think for several times, and then return the final answer with the appropriate explanation. And finally, you validate the result before giving the final result. Steps are analyze, think, output, validate, and then return the final result. I have defined the rules also. You have to follow the strict JSON output format. Always perform one step at a time and wait for the next input. Carefully analyze the user query. So you will observe that I have given a proper example. So we do give the example in a few short prompting. In the chain of thought, it is kind of a type of few short prompting itself. The only difference is over here, we are having multiple chains, multiple steps before we reach the final result. For example, if somebody is asking what is 2 plus 2 into 0 plus 2, your first step will be analyze. You will share the content in front of the user. All right, the user is interested in mathematical query having the expression that contains addition and multiplication. Then you will think and you will share to the user as an output. Let's break it down into step by step. Then again, you will think and you will give the content as first, we need to handle the multiplication part of the expression. Now you're observing that if you won't provide these chains, you might get the final answer as 4, something like this. In a normal few short prompting, you can provide an input and you will provide a set of output. So it will do internal calculations internally. But if you want in every step the result and you want it to think critically, this is a wonderful practice which we follow. So whenever we feel that we are doing something complex and we want to understand that how my model is also thinking and giving the final response, we are not taking care of the final result. We are taking care of how it is thinking and giving me the response. That is where chain of thought comes into picture. It's like when we take the interviews, when I take an interview, I always say to the interviewees that whenever I'm asking you some question, always talk about what is going on in your head. Even if the answer is correct or not, I'm not concerned about it. I'm more concerned about how you're thinking. So if you will share with me your internals, see, this is your approach, this is how you're thinking, that will eventually give me the confidence that, okay, this person has a right mindset. Maybe that person has not reached the correct solution, but at least I get to know that, okay, where exactly that person breaks in terms of understanding. So that is a very crucial point. So whenever same thing will happen for LLM, whenever I feel that this is a complex problem, this is a research oriented problem, this is something which requires the complex designing, instead of relying on the direct output, it will give me more interpretation towards how my model is thinking. So this is what we call as chain of thought prompting. Is it clear? Is it okay for everyone? Are we able to understand the difference between few shot versus an integral type of few shot as chain of thought? All good? Is this fine? थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़े. So I have tried to implement the same thing in a Gemini as well, and here we go. So you can see uh, what we have done over here. We have defined the role. You are a senior technical support engineer at a tier one cloud provider. Your tone should be professional, calm, and highly technical. You prioritize the security and efficiency. When asked a question, you follow a triage approach. So, whenever somebody is saying that this is the approach, this is the mindset you have to follow, this is the pipeline you have to follow, always get a click, okay, this is where we're talking about chain of thought prompt. You will identify the likely course, you will provide a three-step immediate mitigation, and then advice on long-term prevention. So I have mentioned the user query, which is the task. Our database is showing 100% CPU usage and customers can't log in. What do I do? So now you can see I have used again generated content, model ID, user query, and I have mentioned the config as a system persona, which we have defined. So when you observe the output over here, you will be amazed to see the kind of response it is giving to us. In the meantime, it is running. If you have any questions, any doubts to ask, please ask from me. Otherwise, we will proceed further. All good till so far? Are we good? So you can see, as we have mentioned them to follow a three-step instruction, you can see the result. Now it is not direct one. It is this is the critical severity event. Based on your description, database is likely experiencing a resource exhaustion driven by either an unoptimized query executing at high frequency or a sudden spike in the connection attempts. Then you can see number one, likely cause identification. Number two, immediate mitigation. Number three, long term prevention. How step by step it is giving me a update. And at the very end, it is giving me a status update, which is providing the engine type and the output of your process list. The CPU does not stabilize within 5 minutes of scaling. So, yep, this is where the chain of thought prompting will come into picture. Shall we move further? All good till so far. So now we have discussed why we need prompt engineering, and we have discussed three interesting categories right now: zero shot, few shot, and chain of thought. Are we good till so far? So, if you will observe that this prompt engineering and the ideas, the ways that we have learned till so far, finally helps the model to control the tone, the structure, the style, persona, scope, and the reasoning process of the model. But it does not fully solve the problem of unpredictability, which we discussed in the very starting of our today's session. Don't you think so? Because once you have given the prompt and once you start getting the responses, model has to generate the next token. And at that point of time, again, the same probability thing will come into picture, and we will get the next token predictions, and based on that, the results we will be able to get. Yes, this is helpful till the point where my model will start initiating the responses as an output. But once it starts doing the instantiation, after that the things will remain same. If it's a huge paragraph, it will have to predict the next token only. So somehow it helps me to control the tone, structure, style, persona, scope, reasoning process. But eventually my problem was that uh, it was a probability based structure in a language model. When it tries to generate the next token, every time it is giving some different probability, and that may be giving me an inconsistent response. How can I avoid that? So prompt controls the model before generation, right? So this prompting, whatever we have learned right now, this helps the model, or this controls, helps to control the model before data generation, right? But what happens once my model will start generating the data? How can I eventually control that? And that is where we have another interesting concept which we called as decoding. Decoding controls the model during the generation process. So once your model starts generating the content, it will start uh, controlling the behavior of that now. So let's say after generating the token probabilities, you have mentioned your model starts generating I love machine. So it starts giving the probability of learning as, let's say, 65%, intelligence as 15%, models as 10%, and tools as, let's say, 5%. So these are the most probable words. I love machine learning, and I love machine intelligence, I love machine models, I love machine tools. So how my model will pick the next token, how the model pick the next token. Usually it is being decided by the highest probability, but now we have something called as decoding, uh, which will help me to eventually do this specific task. The idea is same. By default, greedy decoding is something which works internally, which eventually does the same thing which we have learned from the very first day, that it choose the uh, highest probability token, and give us the results accordingly. For example, in this specific case, the next token should be learning, ideally, because that is the highest percentage value which we are getting. So yeah, it will choose always the highest topmost token, which makes the model more deterministic, consistent, and help us to avoid having a repetitive or less creative task. But this is something which is a by default practice which is being followed uh, quite commonly. Apart from this, we do have a technique which is very common called as temperature sampling. Now, if you have ever worked in this industry, you should know that we have a way in our code to set the temperature. If you will set a very low temperature in the decoding part, lower temperature means that you want the response to be very focused. You don't want it to change in every point of time. It will make sure that you will be always getting a more consistent results. But as soon as you will make this parameter to a higher value, higher temperature value, you will observe that you are getting the results which are quite more random. So ideally, what we do whenever we are working on coding specific tasks, we try to make this temperature value as zero because I want the result to be focused. I want the results to be consistent. I want the results to be deterministic. For example, I'm doing SQL specific scripts. I'm building a RAG specific applications. But I will make the temperature to be big, maybe zero point 0.7, if I am doing a general chat and I just want to grab the knowledge. So at every point of time, it will give me some new responses and that will help me to get a better understanding of it. And as soon as I will make it temperature value to 1 plus, it will give me more randomized responses and the creative people who are in a creative field, if they want to design something new, some new poem, some new story, some new music, they want some creativity. So at that point of time, they will uh, provide the temperature value as 1 plus. So what eventually will happen is, as soon as you will make the temperature value as 0, it will only bring you the two possible options. I love machine. Learning will have 95% and others will have only 5% probability. So your model will directly instantly pick learning, which will be more effective and the correct response. But as soon as you will make this value as maybe 1 plus, what will happen in the same example? You will get more words possibility. Learning contribution will be lesser as to 40%. Intelligence contribution will be more towards approximately let's say 20%. Models contribution will be more towards 20%, and tools contribution will be, let's say, more towards 15%. So basically, you will get a distribution of these words, which becomes more flatter now, as soon as you will increase the temperature value. So whenever you are doing any specific task which requires more consistency and more focus, always make sure that your temperature value in a code will be as low as maybe 0 or nearby 0. But as soon as you will increase the temperature values, you will expect that the responses will be more randomized and more creative. Now, depending upon what exact task you are working on, we will work and play with this temperature values. I will talk more about it and will demonstrate to the further code process of it in my next discussion because the time is up. But till so far, I hope that whatever things we have covered up, it is perfectly clear to everyone. So majorly what we have focused today in a quick summarization, we have seen that why there is a need to control the LLM behavior. In the starting of the session, we have seen one example or a use case where we have seen that how these tools are giving me different responses in every iteration with the same question. uh, we have seen that by design the language models are probability based models, but what we eventually want is the deterministic results as a engineer. So we come towards the challenges while controlling the LLMs. It could be hallucination, inconsistent responses, formatting issues, safety options, safety problems, sorry. And that is where we work on prompt engineering. It is nothing but how you will design a system prompt uh, so that it will ensure that the tone will be appropriate, the output will be in a deterministic way, and whatever be the result we are getting, it should be reliable and consistent. So we have discussed about different practices, for example, zero shot, few shot, and chain of thought. We have seen that the generalized conceptual understanding will be whenever we design any system design prompt, it should always contain the instruction, context, input data, and the output indicator. After that, we have seen that still, even if we design a best prompt, the problem is that we can control the tone, structure, and the styling of the response. But once our output starts originating and generating by the model, we cannot control the next uh, token prediction, right? And that is where we need a concept of something called as decoding, which controls the model during the generation process. And that is where we have seen that one way could be directly predicting the highest probability of a given token, but we can control this number of words and the probability of them via a temperature way, where if we provide a lower temperature, it will make sure that the output will be more focused, consistent, and reliable. But if you want the creative results, if you want more randomized results, that is where you have to increase the value of the temperature. That is what we have learned till so far. But there are other approaches as well. For example, in our next session, we will talk about top K sampling approach, top P sampling approach, which will help my model overall to make the results more consistent and creative. So please stay tuned. And I hope that you are enjoying this series, whatever we are working towards this Gen AI. We will work on it and we will do the code implementation of this decoding part in our next discussion.